Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations. There are many places to find Primus Tracks in the digital world. They are as follows. At Primus Tracks on Instagram and Threads. There is a Facebook page called Primus Tracks. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. You could also find Primus Tracks in the physical world. All you have to do is go to Mexico City, find Primus Tracks Towers. It's in the Primus Tracks district. And find the 39-story building with a giant Seas of Cheese artwork mural on it. Press the 39 button on the buzzer down there at the entrance. Frankie's personal secretary will answer the call. And if you are lucky enough to be granted entrance, I have not, but if you are lucky enough, you will be escorted by heavily armed guards to the 39th floor of Primus Tracks Towers for a personal audience with my pal, Frankie Berestein.
Hey, Josh.
Hi, Frankie. One of these days, I will earn that personal audience.
More than welcome.
Oh, I'm more than welcome. I was going to say I'm surprised you keep letting me in on these calls. Thanks for that. Well, we are here today to talk about Elephant Ghost. That is track 4 from your Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains album, The Big Eyeball in the Sky. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about some other things, Frankie. First of all, there are many ways that you, yes, you, listening, can support the podcast. Easiest way, tell your Primus pals. Let those ads at the end roll. Turn the volume down. Turn them up. Don't listen to them. Tune them out. Just let them roll. We get a few pennies from that. And of course, we have some stickers up for sale on our Instagram page at Primus Tracks. There's a pin post there. Or you can message me, email me about said stickers, and I'm more than happy to send them to you for like $1 a piece. Why not? I got a few over here, Frankie, of your designs, just waiting to get into the hands of primatrons and primates and Primus fans and sticker fans.
That's awesome.
And if you're going to New Year's Eve this year, maybe Frankie will autograph your sticker. Or maybe he'll take it. I don't know. He some of the sticker designs he doesn't have in his hands yet. So
I need the holographic ones.
I'm definitely going to bring you some holographic ones at New Year's, Frankie. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I'll autograph them over to you, and you can have a signed sticker from me.
Oh, that would be great.
Straight into the vault. For that one. You can't let that one see any air after you receive it. And of course, patreon.com/Primus Tracks for supporting the podcast. We have a bit of miscellaneous debris, Frankie. First of all, what a run on the Whamolas. The mass-produced Whamolas through the marketing machine that is Les Claypool. The pre-sale sold out in a matter of hours. So there's going to be another run of Whamolas, I understand, yes. Right?
People snap them up in seconds.
So if you missed out the first time, what's the deal? They're taking reservations for pre-orders for another round, Frankie?
There is a waiting list now, yes. So you might as well register if you really want one.
I don't even remember where you go to do that. Pachyderm something or other.
Pachyderm Instruments, yeah.
Pachyderm Instruments, that's it. They have an Instagram. I'm sure there's a pachyderminstruments.com.
Yep.
And sign up for a Whamola. Why not? You too can make weird spaghetti splatter sounds with your Whamola and your envelope filter in the privacy of your own home.
Drumstick not included.
He couldn't. You can't throw in a drumstick for $600. Come on, man. That's the thing. Les missed a marketing opportunity there to have a custom Whamola drumstick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a Whamola drumstick solely for the Whamola. It would be terrible for drums. It's perfect for the Whamola. I have a feeling there's going to be a generation of Whamola buskers on the streets of major cities in North America for the next 30 years now, Frankie. We won't be able to get away from them.
Totally. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, I will briskly walk by and cover my ears or pretend I don't see them, and Frankie's going to stop and throw $1 at him and then scream, "More envelope filter! Make it epic!" So there's that. And Frankie, you told me about an interview with Les Claypool and Maynard that's coming down the pike.
An interview with Les Claypool and Maynard James Keenan, which was conducted by Kyle Meredith, who is quite experienced at interviewing Les, is going to premiere tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to what topics they'll discuss other than Sesanta, which I'm sure will be covered. But it might be interesting to hear updates about any new album or project that Les has been working on, besides what he already told us, of course.
Yeah.
But you know that he tends to share different information here and there.
And of course, when you say the interview premieres tomorrow, you were talking about our tomorrow, not for the people listening to this.
Our tomorrow being October 16th.
That's right. So our tomorrow is October 16th. You may have already heard the interview with Les and Maynard if you're listening to this.
We're ripping a hole in the fabric of time, yes.
We're going to need Data and O'Brien and LaForge all over this to drag us out. Track 4 of your Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains, released The Big Eyeball in the Sky from 2004, is named Elephant Ghost. It is 10 minutes and 1 second long, according to my CD rip of it, Frankie, which I just re-ripped the CD, of course, in preparation for discussing this record. However, in your liner notes, Frankie, they specify the times of these tracks. For one thing, they write out the lengths of the tracks in words. They don't use numbers. And in your liner notes for The Big Eyeball in the Sky, Elephant Ghost is listed as 9 minutes and 58 seconds. There's a bit of a discrepancy there. I'm going to go with 10:01 because that double-digit minute marker just screams a 4-letter word to me that you use fairly often, Frankie, and that is epic.
Yeah.
So we have ourselves a 10-minute instrumental track from our 4 principal members of Bucket of Bernie Brains.
First of all, I find it so interesting where this song is placed on the record. We have 3 consecutive songs, which of course are not radio friendly or easily digestible by any standard, but I mean they are perfectly quote unquote normal for Les Claypool standards. And in terms of sequencing, you get, three songs, 3 conventional songs, so to speak, in a row, and then on track 4 you are confronted with this 10-minute instrumental, and it's so left field in terms of the album placing that I think it's there to kind of remind you that this is not an album that will adjust to your expectations. So I think this track is there kind of as a reminder of the true nature of the band, that even if they are, providing you with songs to listen to, their true strength lies in the extended jams and improvisations, which is how the project was born originally. So I find the placing of the song quite confrontational.
You feel confronted. You feel like the band is shoving a 10-minute instrumental into your face too early, perhaps, or you feel like it doesn't belong in the 4th slot.
No, I feel it fits just great, but I think they kind of put it there as some kind of filter. So if you can't make it past this track, don't even bother with the rest of the album. Because it's not going to get easier after that.
I've never thought of a track as a way. I've never thought of an instrumental track as a way of saying to listeners, I dare you. I dare you to listen to this, and I dare you to take on the rest of the record afterwards. That's a pretty brazen thing to do. I agree with the principles on which this track is certainly justified on the record, the improvisational nature of the band being all instrumental for those improvisational shows, and bringing some of those highlights from those improvisational shows to the record. Yeah.
I love the fact that Primus has Soundbound Pachyderm and Bucket of Burning Brains has Elephant Ghost.
Yeah, that's another thing that came to mind for me when considering Elephant Ghost. So I draw parallels to the long Primus instrumental Hamburger Train, of course. Completely different thematic ideas and musical ideas and imagery throughout. However, it is a really long jam that kind of stays, not necessarily in a box, but stays in the same neighborhood.
Yes.
And Hamburger Train almost feels like an I Dare You tune as well, but it's shoved so far back at the end of Pork Soda as to be hidden away for those who would, I suppose, relish finding it. Whereas, as you say, this one is right there at number 4. So maybe this is the great gate through which only a few pass onto the rest of the record.
I also love the fact that Les and Brain were completely oblivious to this song, and we had the opportunity to confront them with it. And they were like, wow, what the hell is that? They loved it. Les was all over it. So if one day in the future Elephant Ghost makes it to a setlist somehow, we can take full credit for that.
I suppose we can, because we put it back in their heads.
Yes.
Their reaction to that, Brains and Les's, that is, when we spoke with them a few weeks ago, was priceless. That's the best song ever, or whatever he said. And Brain, being in disbelief that that was even them, is
Exactly.
is just a wonderful reaction, and I think it shows how spontaneous the recording was. And of course the tour was so brief, and then they were on to their many other projects. Les has had a billion things going on. Brain always has a lot going on. Bucket, of course, is endlessly recording, and Bernie had lots of things too. For them to leave that project and probably forget about those tunes for the most part, and of course 20 years on, just to say
It's
that's us.
perfectly understandable. Yeah.
It certainly is.
Having heard the studio track today and various live versions, which I've enjoyed quite a lot through the years, I stand by what I said back in that interview. I think the Elephant Ghost studio recording is basically a 10-minute sample of something much larger.
Oh, yes, that it was cut down from an even longer jam.
Yeah. The way that it just kicks in and then fades out, it's so abrupt that you can kind of tell that they couldn't figure out where to even begin, right? Because I mean it's probably this incredibly long epic that they improvised in the studio.
One day maybe we'll get the 14-minute version of
Or
Elephant Ghost.
20-minute version.
20, sure, why not? With that in mind, actually, what are we looking at for a live history? And has this one, a 10-minute track, has this one been stretched out live in the Bernie Brains live history?
It's been stretched out to over the 20-minute mark. So yes, it's a jam vehicle by excellence. And believe it or not, Josh, it was actually premiered in 2003 before the album even existed. It
Really?
was premiered, yeah, at the State Palace Theater in New Orleans uh, back in 2003 when Bucket of Burning Brains was just jamming and improvising on stage with no set list. However, this show did feature an elephant ghost rendition in a skeletal version of the song. And then, of course, the song was performed at every single stop of the 2004 tour to promote the record. It was kind of the center, you know how back in those days, 2003 and 2004, Tim Alexander's drum solo was kind of the centerpiece of the Primus concerts. In
Yeah.
terms of Bucket of Bernie Brains, Elephant Ghost was pretty much the centerpiece of these performances because it usually led into a equally extensive drum solo by Brain. So that was quite a considerable portion of every night's setlist dedicated to purely instrumental passages. Not only was it performed by Bucket of Burning Brains at every stop of their tour, surprisingly, Josh, it was resurrected by Holy Mackerel during their reunion show at Bimbo's 365 in San Francisco. And then,
Mhm.
believe it or not, it was also performed by the Frog Brigade in 2005 and by the Fancy Band twice in 2005 as well. So that is I think it's a very rich and very interesting live history. Elephant Ghost has been tackled by different musicians with different band iterations, but something that all of these versions share in common is that they became fascinating jam vehicles. Now we're going to sample, of course, some live versions tonight, but I just want to get a little bit ahead and tell you that the way that Elephant Ghost was performed every night was by beginning the song with this very evocative, very melancholic guitar line by Buckethead. Gabby would join with her sitar as well, and eventually Les with the upright and Brain would come in to give the track a crescendo, which of course reached its peak with Buckethead's guitar solo. After that, things cooled down considerably, and then you have lots of improvisation just to lead the track into the coda, which turned into the drum solo.
So they had a standard structure for the live rendition.
They did,
Okay.
and they were free. They were free to experiment within those confinements. But yeah, they did have a structure that they followed to perform the song. Because I mean, attempting to perform the song as it is on the record, I think that would be insane.
There are plenty of bands that will take their 12 to 15-minute studio tracks and reproduce them note for note on stage. Good for them, but that is not what you're going to get from Bucket of Bernie Brains or really any Les Claypool outfit, Primus included.
And I mean, the way that they performed it live, particularly that guitar line or that guitar melody, which began the performances, it's really evocative. It's really wonderful. Buckethead can play incredibly fast. He's incredibly technical and talented, but the other side of the coin is that he can also perform these really beautiful pieces of music outside of those confinements, right? Of shredding and performing really fast. Elephant Ghost is a prime example, and even though the song is completely bereft of words, it's an instrumental, of course. That guitar line and instrumentation is so evocative, I can perfectly picture the backstory of this elephant ghost and all the years that it probably lived.
That is one thing I wanted to ask you is the imagery that comes to your mind or your mind's eye when you're listening to the 10-minute studio cut of Elephant Ghost, because there is a lot of rich musicality to it, including some haunting guitar work from Bucket showcasing that melodic side of his. That
What
there
comes,
is a
yeah,
lot. There's just so much. You can paint quite a tapestry with this. I'm curious what comes to your mind.
what comes to my mind immediately are these cemeteries where you see elephant skeletons lying on the ground. And it's really compelling to see those remains because you're looking at the remains of incredibly majestic creatures,
Hmm.
remarkably intelligent, remarkably strong, So to see their remains on the ground and the fact that those skeletons are still so, they evoke such a strength even at such a state, I think it speaks about the nature of these animals, which is really, really incredible. So that's what the elephant ghost communicates to me, that these animals live for so many years and they are so wise and they are so amazing that when you see their remains, you have to wonder if an elephant ghost is wandering around.
Hmm. That is an unexpected answer from you, but it's fascinating. Possibly I was taking a real literal bent to it when I was letting my mind wander, but I found myself imagining an actual elephant ghost, but a very wispy one, not a concrete ghost, but one that was essentially made up of fog and mist and was amorphous to a degree. But it was smiling, which is strange. Like it wasn't a rueful smile. It was a smile of mirth and happiness. It was a playful elephant ghost that was nebulous of shape and just kind of working its way through some dense bush, but also out into the open savanna or what have you. I was trying to follow it, and and this is just free association, and I feel like it's trying to tell me something, and I can't quite understand it. But at the same time, with this instrumentation, especially the way it kicks in, and of course we'll play some samples here, that looping noise that starts the track, that I'm sure that sounds like something Les was doing, and feeding it through some effects. That loopy thing, like that's kind of the ghostly elephant imagery for me. And then the bass line is kind of lumbering like a physical, actual elephant, and that kick drum Brain is accenting that from time to time. And then his cymbal work, Frankie, especially on the intro, with a lot of ghost notes. That and Buckethead's guitar effects with that, not echo, but with those, maybe it is an echo, but with that effect, it actually sounds almost like a light rain on a tarp. Then I had this imagery of I was in some kind of janky vehicle in spots, going down this rutted road trying to find this elephant ghost with a light rain falling on the tarp that was covering me in this vehicle. So my interpretation, I think, was a bit literal, but at the same time, it just felt, once again, these guys made this music and probably weren't even thinking about it, but I'm guessing that loop, that effect that starts the track, somebody said, that sounds like the ghost of an elephant. And that was that. Okay, this track is called Elephant Ghost. So probably just a minor observation throwaway line, but that's, the beauty of a 10-minute instrumental is you can make your own narrative, and it can be a nice, long, rich narrative if you so choose. Or you could just get stoned and space out for 10 minutes, but I know neither of us did that.
You said Savannah.
Yes.
I know I should have thought about the savannah in Africa, but because of The Office, I cannot listen to the word savannah without thinking about Georgia.
There's been a murder in Savannah.
Oh, you really want this more of a Savannah accent?
Like molasses dripping off it, yeah. And it's funny, I think as I was letting my mind wander, by the way, that's a great reference. But I will say, when I was letting my mind wander geographically, I was on the savannah, but I also, and this is dream logic, right? It doesn't mean much, but I was also in, Southeast Asian rainforest. So but once again, that's dictated by elephant habitat, right? Your African and Asian elephants. I was having a good time just kind of chasing this ghost for a few minutes today as I listen to this track all the way through for the first time in quite some time.
Let's sample some of that studio track.
I would like to, yeah. You know, before we sample the studio track, you mentioned Southbound Pachyderm, Frankie. So, of course, we're going to make connections. We're just bound to do that. Southbound Pachyderm is a great connection. It also made me think of other songs or tracks with the name Elephant, such as Elephant Talk from King Crimson. And Adrian Belew on his side 1 record has a track called Elephants. Les, of course, and Danny Carey both guest on a few tracks on that record, although they do not guest on the track called Elephants. But I found something similar, what Adrian Belew does on his track called Elephants and what Les is doing on the track Elephant Ghost. And it kind of has that lumbering quality to it. Between Les's bass in Elephant Ghost and then in Adrian Belew's track here with this staccato guitar line. And some wildlife sampling. Very lumbering, right? Kind of swaying back and forth, and percussive. And unmistakably Adrian Belew making those guitar noises, right? Almost, as if he's trying to mimic elephant calls and blasts from their magnificent voices. Let's sample from the studio cut of Elephant Ghost. So this intro, Frankie, with that looping AM radio-like ghostly elephant call leads us off. And then we, as I mentioned earlier, that bass comes in lumbering like an elephant, and that cymbal work here in the first 40-odd seconds by Brain, in conjunction with Bucket's guitar licks, really adds an element of mystery to the proceedings here. Love those rolls. So this cymbal work here and this guitar work is haunting.
The guitar work, it kind of it has this kind of police quality to me, at least. Do you hear that?
You're getting some Andy Summers out of it?
Yeah.
I think there's an overall vibe that you could pull out of here because of the dub approach, and the quasi reggae feel of what they're doing there, and the Police used that quite a bit. So Andy Summers was playing in that style, I think, on a number of records. Although the Police much better than I. But that's my takeaway.
Get that vibe, yeah.
Okay. So maybe we're not far off then with that idea. It is kind of that I'm struggling to put words to that, but I think I understand what you're saying. But I don't think I can describe that Andy Summers feel. So that's our start. It starts innocently enough with this kind of slow-paced, lumbering thing here. But they start ramping it up, of course. There's a lot of peaks and valleys in this track. I'm gonna move forward to about the 2-minute mark here, where Brain, who had been hanging out on the rim of the snare, moves to the snare drum itself, and the track really starts to build, and Brain plays a really cool pattern here for about 30 seconds. That right there. And And then we get into this part here, and Bernie has this really cool line and really cool effects on the keyboards here. Some cool stuff happening throughout.
Yes, and that particular line that you just played with the synth, it's incredibly reminiscent of Cross-Eyed and Painless by the Talking Heads, but not the studio version found on Remaining Light, but the live version found on Stop Making Sense, which featured Bernie Worrell. So it's not surprising, to say the least.
Okay, so Bernie might be playing something somewhat standard for him, or at least it's not beyond the realm of expectation for Bernie. Okay, that's good to know. I don't know Bernie's Talking Heads performances very much at all. That's something I definitely need to check out. Oh, yeah. Okay. I hear a similarity there.
There's a vibe, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because Bernie will sneak all these little references and licks into his playing. Especially when you listen to these Bernie Brain shows where he goes up there for the first 5-10 minutes on his own.
Yes.
He sneaks a lot of samples and licks and references in there. So maybe that's what he was doing there.
And it's wonderful how with Bernie performing with Les, things pretty much come full circle, considering that Primordial Primus was incredibly Talking Heads inspired.
Absolutely. I love that connection. A lot of this stuff does eventually come around and connect. It's wild. So with Elephant Ghost, Bernie plays that cool lick, that cool line. They're building atmosphere and intensity over the next couple of minutes. And I'm forwarding to about 5 minutes, 19 seconds, where we get a Buckethead solo to a crescendo that is pretty powerful, especially when you're chasing a smiling elephant ghost that is withholding its secrets. Here it comes. So Buckethead gets a really nice solo in right there as the track reaches new heights. We're still only 6 minutes in, so there's a lot more to do. And of course, so they bring it back down after a time. And then at about the 8-minute mark, Frankie, is a new pattern emerges, and it's going to carry us to the end of the track. This shift always left me on a really wistful note. And I don't know, maybe it's the season change, Frankie. I'm looking out my window in my fair part of the world. It rained for the first time in about 4 months today, of any appreciable amount. And the season's changing. And so maybe I'm feeling wistful anyway, but this last couple of minutes always kind of left me with a little smile on my face at what once was or what could be, I suppose. rad drum line. And I think maybe it's the tone that Bernie's using there that makes me feel wistful or hopeful or something along those lines.
And Brain was making full use of that percussion on his drum kit during the tour.
Yeah, he didn't have the hugest kit on the tour, but he was using every piece he had, right?
Yes, and throughout the entire shows, he filled a lot of space with percussion.
That's our Brain. Remember, he always brings it live. He's always going to push it, and
Yes.
I'm sure these live cuts we're going to hear soon are no exception.
How about we take a listen at those live cuts?
Yeah, we should get there. So, just to wrap it up, it's a 10-minute instrumental, which to most people would mean you skip it or you give up on the record altogether, as you intimated earlier, Frankie. But
Yes.
I think this one is a rewarding instrumental, and it certainly shows focus and purpose. Everybody contributes something of interest all throughout the track. And so I find this one palatable enough to come back to again and again. And I think it stands up 20 years on for sure. I think I like listening to instrumental music anyway, Frankie, and I know some people aren't that into it. I myself am just fine with it. So this has a lot of replay value for me. I do want to play those live cuts, but we have to do something else first, Frankie.
Yep.
You guessed correctly. That's exactly what it is. That wonderful music could only mean one thing. It's time for Primate's Takes. If you would like your takes read on the podcast, all you have to do is go to... I'm fired. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. And there are many levels of support over there. And the universal constant is I put up the post usually a few days ahead of time at least. This one was only a few hours. I apologize for that, Primatrons, and I'll read your takes right here. So, because of that truncated timeline, Frankie, we only have a couple takes to read.
Sure.
And they are as follows. Your pal Eric in Australia, Frankie, says, I would call it the less majestic Asian elephant, cousin to the mighty southbound pachyderm which strides across the savannah. Savannah. Yeah, savannah. Thank you for that imagery, Eric. The Asian elephant cousin to southbound pachyderm. Majestic in its own right, beautiful in its own right. You know what, Frankie? Whenever I talk to little kids about their favorite animals, I always say my favorite animal is the elephant. I don't know if I believe that, but I always say it because I do admire elephants so much. And one of the things I wanted to talk about earlier was they just seem so empathic because we know that they experience a full range of emotions and they're very family-oriented animals. But I have to imagine, and I would like to imagine at least, that if I were to befriend an elephant, that we would just be able to find some kind of calm or centering with one another. And I bring this up because that's how I feel when I brush my horse. Like when I just go hang out with my horse, he's so calm. Mm-hmm. And he visibly relaxes when I'm around, feeding him carrots and brushing him and making him look nice and getting all that dirt off him and getting the tangles out of his mane and whatnot. And that we both just kind of stand there and breathe and kind of lean against each other sometimes. And it's very calming, and refreshing. So it's, I just imagine that I could do that with an elephant too. No idea if that's true, but I want it to be true. So I'm going to take a 6-month sabbatical from the podcast. I will be in Central Africa, Frankie, befriending elephants. And murdering poachers. I'm going to be doing that too. So I'm going to be busy. So hopefully you can carry the podcast on your own while I commune with the elephants.
Did you know that the elephants had some really fascinating ancestors?
Yes, I really enjoy reading about megafauna, and so
Yes.
the elephant lineage is astonishing.
The Platybelodon was truly something to behold.
And of course they're all in the fossil record with artist reconstructions, right? And that's my favorite thing is like, how do they figure this out? Like, how do they know that's what they may have looked like? And a lot of it's guesswork, but it's educated guesswork. So the artists get to take some creative license, but you see these renditions or renderings of these animals long extinct, and it's mind-boggling. We're still on Primates Take. Sorry, primates and primatrons. It would be great if one of our primatrons just weighed in with some kind of expository essay about whatever the animal or concept or topic it was up for discussion in the lyrics or the title of the song. Let's point to Mickey Waters, who says of Elephant Ghost, a genre exploration through reggae, experimental, rock, ambience, psychedelia, and classic Claypoolian weirdness. I'm sure I'm missing something, but hey, as Frankie said, it's an epic. And I do agree, it is an epic. What makes it an epic for you, Frankie?
The fact that it doesn't drone on and on for 10 minutes, because if you look at the track length of a song and you realize that it goes on for 10 minutes, and then you listen to it and it's essentially the same thing over and over, that is not an epic at all. An epic is when within those 10 minutes, the band or the artists are taking the song to many different places and surprising you with all kinds of twists and turns. And Elephant Ghost has at least 3 or 4 distinct sections, which in my book is enough to consider it an epic. On top of that, just add the fact that the musicianship is of the highest caliber.
I think you're onto something with your definition of a musical epic. I will second the idea that it's an epic track. Or third it, I suppose. Mickey, Frankie, and Josh. All in agreement. I wonder if Eric in Australia would call Asian elephants epic. If they're no less majestic. Even though he calls them less majestic. Come on, Eric. All elephants have majesty. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. A true jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
What's going on here? Shards of bone in my anus.
This time it is a jam vehicle.
100%. Although half of our listeners listen to that jingle and turn off the podcast and they go listen to Precipitation. Then they come back for the live cuts. It looks like our first live cut is from the great city of Santa Cruz. Now, you mentioned the introduction that Elephant Ghost had in a live setting. We're going to get a taste of that here from the show in Santa Cruz on the Bernie Brains Tour 2004.
Yes, get ready for that.
Haunting. So here's the other thing, Frankie. Well, I'm going to let it play, but it's a fairly simple lick he's playing, and I could sit in my room here and play that on guitar, but I just wouldn't make it sound nearly as good. You know, Bucket's just, or any talented guitar player that is, practiced, polished, just makes that kind of thing sound so good.
It really sets the tone.
Yeah, this is haunting, actually.
It really paves the way for what is about to come.
There's our pal Gabby on the sitar.
Gabby's in the house, yes.
Wow. It sounds great, and I appreciate that they went in another creative direction with this track for the live setting. I think that's great. I'm going to forward to about the 4-minute mark on Santa Cruz here. Ah. This is rad, Frankie. I love this.
When everything kicks in and all the band is performing at once, it's incredible.
Wow. It's so different too, but no less exotic sounding, of course, with the different tonalities they're achieving here, and the sitar, of course, helps take us to another place. This is tripped out, Frankie. This is great.
Yes.
Oh, man. So this is a totally different vibe from the studio track.
Absolutely.
And then you've got about at the 7-minute mark, you're having us listen to some guitar. Boom. There's some real, before they took off with that double time and Bucket really launched, there's a lot of pathos to this. This all of a sudden doesn't necessarily sound like anything Les Claypool would be involved in. There's some real pathos there. Some real emotion to that Elephant Ghost rendition there.
Yep.
Let's move to Albuquerque at the Sunshine Theater. Also 2004, as most of these are going to be. kind of funny to me that they're going to they're playing this beautiful song, Frankie, and about 6 minutes later they're going to be playing Thai Noodles.
Yeah, totally.
Like the range here is incredible. By your choices, I'm going to guess that as far as Buckethead goes, are you more of a melodic Buckethead guy than the shreddy stuff?
No, I love the shreddy stuff, of course. I absolutely, it's jaw-dropping for me to hear what Buckethead can do with a guitar.
Yeah.
So both sides of the coin are great for me.
Yeah. He has about 700 albums, so you got to start somewhere.
Only the
But
big time, yeah.
if you really want the melodic, more laid-back stuff, Colma is a good record to start with. There are a lot of Buckethead experts out there who know a lot more than me, but that's where that's the first more melodic Buckethead record I heard. Our last stop on the Elephant Ghost Ennui tour is San Francisco, California at the Warfield. Why not round it out with more guitar? Ooh, I like the sitar around the edges on that. That's pretty nice. All these selections, Frankie, have me feeling so introspective.
Yes.
Those of you listening can't tell, but I'm blushing at my introspective reaction to these things. I'm not sure what's come over me. I'm going to chalk it up to the season change, Frankie. When summer ends and fall has arrived, Frankie, I either get allergies or the other manifestation is uncontrollable sobbing, which I think I'm about to go do. So you've put me on the fast track to that. I suppose I can say this. Haunt us no more, Elephant Ghost. You've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, I got one question for you.
Go ahead.
What you gonna do about it, huh?
What you gonna do about it?
So that's Elephant Ghost. Primates, primatrons, people of Earth, thank you all so much for listening. I do want to thank our primatrons over there, patreon.com/Primus Tracks. Let's go back to a little more Elephant Ghost for a soundtrack for this, Frankie. There it is. The following people have shared a lot with us, but they have supported us for some time now, and we couldn't be more grateful. A lot of great stuff going over there on the Patreon with the Hangouts and the bonus pods and other extras too. We post artifacts from time to time. Not elephant artifacts, but mostly music-related ones. And there's a few more things we're going to be doing in the near future over there. So go check it out. And let's thank the following people. Some of these names are new to you, Frankie. Some of them have been around for a while. Let's thank Audrey Myers for their support, as well as Rowan Bradbury Eason. Katerina Kubatina, thank you so much for your support and your alliterative poetic name. Mike Taylor Mosier. Bryce Shurl. Jack Cameron, Cameron Covington. I love that pairing. Those two guys joined within mere days of each other. Jack Cameron and Cam Covington. Thanks to Mickey Waters and IDK Bai, as well as Lance Halterman and Sachko. Tom Dastic, Brittany Ray, Wemela17, Edwin Allen Richards IV, our landed gentry over there. He owns a lot of the land, I believe, in the area surrounding Primus Tracks Towers. Thanks to Matt Ray and my favorite name to say on here, Deluge Nuts. Jordan Kahn, our resident fish expert over there at the Patreon. Matt Crakely. Trish, who does all things crochet and otherwise, if you're watching on the Patreon. This beauty right here is a product of Trish's. Thanks to Bo Campbell for his support as well. Less is more. Eric in Australia. John Gatwood. Mr. Tamby Meatfoot. Thank you for your support. Brooks Delight. Ryan Rashawn. Joseph Pebbler. Nick the Dutchy, as he is labeled himself, or Nick in the Netherlands. Travis in Alaska, number 1. Stephanie Wolfgang King. Carl Reinsch, our Spent Poets expert, that is. Travis in Alaska, number 2. Thank you for your support. Mike Chillian, Sarah Markham, Jesse Colton, down there in the Bay Area. Porter Kropf, Anthony Del Preet, go Bills. John Shreve, David Fraser Crane, Johnny Perona, Mr. Funknificent, Johnny Coho, thank you so much, Stephen Stang, Chris, Simon Altman, also in Australia, Mike Tuckerman, Chris Gentile. Haven't heard from Mike in a while. I think Chris has posted recently. And also thanks to Keith Thompson, as well as Kevin and Swift, Frankie Swift. Just Swift. I'm still unsure about that. And of course, El Patron numero uno, Carlos Arizmendi. Thank you all so much for your continuing support over there at patreon.com/Primus Tracks. That's all I have. So, I guess it's time to say later days.
Willie Mays.